Hello, hello.
Hello there.
All right, I will promote you.
Thank you.
Mo's in this one as well, correct?
Yeah, Mo, Carol, and Derek will be in shortly. And we have our first attendee. Good morning, Graham. Welcome. We're just getting set up here, so just hold tight.
Oh yeah, maybe I should change my name too. How's your morning been so far?
Good. Solid morning. Just mostly getting this finished up and handling a couple of job builds.
Nice, nice. So the meeting isn't technically called for 12, so I assume that people will just slowly trickle in until then.
Just want to make sure we get it set up so I can get that. I figured out how to do the advanced share where I can show just a portion of the screen, so it's perfect.
Oh, nice.
I'll be back in a second.
Those who just joined, we will be starting in a little bit. We're just kind of waiting for people to slowly trickle in. We're just getting things set up. So in the meantime, just hang tight.
Oh, geez, it's starting to pour down.
Is it? It's not even raining here.
Oh, it like just in the last 2 minutes, it just started absolutely coming down. Thunder, lightning, everything.
What? It's like partially sunny where I am.
Yeah, weird one. So just actually keep a lookout for when Carol gets into the meeting, because we need to make sure she has panelist privilege.
Yeah, no problem. I'll wait for everyone on this that's listed on the screen there to come in, and I'll promote them.
Perfect. And welcome Craig and Orkan as well as Graham. Thanks for joining us, getting in early. We'll just kind of hang out here for the next 10 minutes until everyone else loads into the chat.
Hey, Zach, you there?
How are you, Carol? Ashley, can you bump Carol up into the panelist, please?
Sure. Which username is that under?
Foster CT.
Okay, no problem. And Mo is in here too now.
Perfect. A few more engineers are just getting logged in. Welcome, Dave. We'll just get started in a few minutes. Wait for everyone else to log in. Thanks for joining early. Welcome, and hope your week's going so well so far.
Hello?
Morning, everyone. Just settling in. Welcome to the webinar today. Hope everyone's week is going well so far. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Wait for a few more people to join us. Hope everyone's doing all right.
Thanks, Zach.
Are you there, Zach?
Good morning, Dave. How are you, sir?
I am very well. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Just gazing out the window, shocked that there's seemingly going from storm showers to flurries of snow in the last 10 minutes. So
Yeah, we had snow flying up here about half an hour ago in Thornhill.
oh man.
Listen, you know that discussion we were having with Mo yesterday?
Yes.
What did he say was the better valve, the direct acting or the pilot operated?
Really, it depends on the application. So I'll touch base with you after, and we can kind of go over the direct acting versus pilot again. Basically, if you need a slower acting valve, something that's not going to close as quickly, then pilot is your way to go.
Yeah.
But there are applications for sure where direct acting is more appropriate. So I'll give you a shout after this, and we can go over that.
Hang on, I'm just going to turn the radio down.
Yeah, thanks for everyone for joining in. We'll just wait a couple more minutes for the rest of the group to join on, and we'll get started just in a minute or two. Probably as soon as my garbage trucks leave from right underneath my window.
Can you hear me okay, Zach?
I can, Carol. How's your morning going?
Oh, so far so good. But yeah, we have every season this morning here in Rockwood. Snow, rain, sun, no
Yeah,
white.
it is a wild day out there.
Mhm.
It's like watching all the seasons pass outside the balcony.
Right? Crazy.
Alrighty, well, I'm sure a few more people will just kind of trickle in as we get started here. So thanks again for everyone joining us. I know this has been a bit of a nice recurring aspect. I hope it's a bit of a break in the week for you guys. We've been getting some pretty good feedback from the clients at large, the engineers around the GTA in Ontario. And it definitely seems like some people like the training and some people like just having a little bit of a mental break in the day. So hopefully this gives you some good information. For a quick introduction, myself, I'm Zach Allison with ATS. I'm the National Sales Manager here, and I manage our outside team. With me on the call is Mo Bashir, which if you're any of our callers from Ottawa or really the rest of the Ontario market, because I only really focus on a few key firms that have offices all across Canada. You guys are probably very well familiar with Mo. So our contact's up there in case you need any information. And then with us today, we have a couple of our colleagues from Watts. Carol Brown, significantly, who's going to be joining me in the presentation. She's the product manager for the drainage line. So perfect to have her with us. Thank you for joining us, Carol.
Good to be here.
And then Derek Lendy as well, who I'm sure you guys know on the call, long time history in the GTA drainage world, and he's the commercial products manager now for Watts as well. So we've got both of their years of experience to help us out if you guys have any tough questions. Thanks for joining us. But today we are going to be really with this intro to drainage. It is exactly as it sounds. This is going to be kind of drainage 101. And this was a presentation, birthed out of requests the last few weeks from those that have been joining us. If you were on the A.O. Smith presentation last week or the one before that, there was a number of follow-up questions from the group. Really from the EIT intro to drainage level all the way up to a couple more complicated designs. So we're going to try to cover as much as we can today. That said, there definitely is more in-depth conversations we could have and, field-specific conversations that we could certainly have as well. So if there's any questions that come up that we can't quite get to today, then we'll be sure to set up a follow-up conversation with you and your firm to make sure you have the information that you need to design your projects. Really what we're going to go over today is the wide assortment of drainage products that do exist, where you use them and why you use them, and some of the key features that there's definitely in drainage, as with a number of other fixtures and equipment that we use in the plumbing world. There are certain options that tie to very specific applications. So there's definitely some products that are one-to-one, and there's others that are more generic and fit a wide variety of products and applications. After we go over the variety of basics, Carol will jump in and go over the Watts Hero products and what kind of separates them from the field. We don't want to be really too salesy, but it's more in the line of if you're calling, like we were talking about, if you're on the SMS presentation a couple of weeks ago, there's some products that are engineered design systems, and you are specifying something for a reason. So what is it that makes it different? What is it you're specifying? And why is it important? So that when you're doing your shop drawing review, you know what you're looking for. And Carol will go over a number of those key differences for us. And then lastly, we'll just do a quick overview again, a reminder of how ATS fits into this whole solution and how we can help engineers in the design field. So, as I mentioned, we're going to try to cover a lot today. So it'll be a little bit of a basics, as we mentioned. We'll go over a couple things kind of quickly, but we'll definitely spend time wherever there's questions. And as with previous weeks, I'll just make a note. We do have everyone pretty much muted upon entry. You're welcome to unmute to ask a question. We do ask that. Obviously, there's a lot of background noise in some of these presentations, so try to keep yourself on mute. But if you have a good question, please feel free to bring it up and interject. There also is a QA field if you go and move your mouse around, where you can submit questions, and Mo will be reviewing those and bringing them up to me as we go through the presentation. In addition, there's the chat feature. So lots of different ways that you can interact and raise questions if you have any on this variety of products. We'll be going from the beginning on floor drains and cleanouts, diving into some of the specifics of sanitary floor sinks, where they're used, why they're used, and different products that suit similar applications to that. And then we'll have a section on kind of carriers, both for fixtures and labs, interceptors, parking areas, roof drains, wide variety of products that we're going over. So, Drainage 101, right from the basics, two main types of floor drains. And they're really, again, divided by application. So you have finished areas and unfinished areas. Finished areas are, as it kind of sounds, places where the appearance matters, where you have a finished floor that likely was chosen by the architect. They have a look that they're going for. They don't want to just see, a painted metal or a epoxy coated ductile iron. Your office buildings, your courtyards, your promenade areas, where you want a little bit of a higher end finish. And these two most common finishes for this application really are your nickel bronze or your stainless steel. Limited, I guess, in a sense of the offering that's out there in the market. But it is important to note not just what the finish is, but how it's applied. Some different products are simply painted on, maybe a plating finish applied to the product versus actually full stainless steel. So different levels of functionality, different levels of life expectancy based on how that coating is applied or if it is all the way through. Unfinished areas, most commonly your basements, your mechanical rooms, your warehouses and industrial applications, a little bit more heavy duty. For the most part, everyone is a ductile iron or painted cast iron, like a powder coat type application. One thing that you do want to note is how that coating is applied. That coating is, for the most part, where life expectancy is lost across different manufacturers. When you walk around and you see products that are not living up to their life expectancy, generally it's going to be because they're starting to rust from a poorly applied coating. That's the coating's there to prevent the oxidation that occurs. A couple other key terms that we'll go over, adjustability. For the most part, every product in the drain line, from floor drains, cleanouts, roof drains, heck, even interceptors when we get to it, there's different ways of extending that product so you get a nice finish with your floor level. These are required features across the different type, as small differences compared to your plans will happen on site and during installation, and have that adjustability for your finished areas to be able to match that finished floor is critical. So again, some more details on finished versus unfinished. Really, the floor drains, as we mentioned, can either be adjustable or non-adjustable. For the most part, we see unfinished areas, like we mentioned, the warehouses, mechanical rooms, things like that, parking garages. Generally, they're cast in. They get the drain body in there and they pour to flush. So the vertical adjustment maybe not as critical. They can adjust on site to make sure that you're getting flush with the drain. And in those applications, the tolerance is not quite as minute. So the adjustability is not built in there. It's available. All the products have it available. But such as an adjustable top for a finished floor area where, maybe the actual on-site installation, the tile is a little bit higher, a couple millimeters higher than normal. In a finished area, that's a tripping hazard. It's unsightly. It doesn't make for a good installation. So having that spin type adjustability makes a nice, clean, easy finish. One thing to note when we're talking about the membrane clamps there. So this is our Carol probably knows the actual body parts a little bit more. This is our FD100 with a squared squared frame. So in this, you have a membrane clamp that they're calling out there. So your above grade slabs, they're specified with a membrane or some sort of flashing to prevent leaking. These drains, the membrane clamp secures the membrane to the drain and makes sure that if there is any seepage coming down, anything that reaches the waterproofing will be directed towards the drain and re-enter the drain through what's known as double drainage. The double drainage is really just these little holes both on the side and the top. I did notice a question popped up there. From Venkat, architects are using painted on waterproofing compound for wet areas these days, as opposed to a waterproof membrane. So what type of floor drain fits this application? I think it's a great question. I think we're actually going over that on the next slide. So let me jump over those surface membranes and see what it's in. Carol, are you familiar with that type of membrane that Venkat's going over there?
Not specifically, but if it's a surface membrane type of membrane, so something like the FC series, which you see there in the middle of the screen. So you can have that waterproofing either at the body or at the surface. So I believe it may be something like that, like they do sometimes in the parking garages, where they have that top membrane.
Yeah, I would think so as well.
Like, I believe they're not even using an elastomeric membrane like we used to do. Even for shower areas, they're saying that they have an integrated waterproofing compound that's mixed with the skim coat, and that's how they waterproof the floors.
Oh, so it's almost embedded in the concrete.
Yes, because
Gotcha.
Apparently the healthcare industry is going to move away from membranes because membranes are causing cracks or fissures on the surface over a period of time because the membranes dry out after a while, and that is causing other problems.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I'd have to look into that a little bit more.
I'll try and get you a spec from an architect on what type of, how they install that floor. Maybe that'll help you look at a product.
Yeah, that'd be perfect, because I guess there's, to go over the membrane again, there's kind of two different ways, and they're very similar based on where the membrane is. As you can see on the top version here, again, we have a membrane clamp. The purpose is that membrane goes in between the two, and it forms a strong seal. Venkat's talking, with that'd be a product, as Venkat mentioned previously, before this kind of concrete embedded membrane. With a typical membrane, there's almost a sheet or something thin that can be clamped down upon. So we'll have to look into the type of flooring that Venkat's talking about there. Possibly you might want to run it in between the membranes still, and kind of have that concrete in there, but we'll have to look at the installation and see how that would work. So like we mentioned, there's probably a one-to-one type product that suits into that. A lot of drains are designed really out of necessity. And out of, I need this type of product, so a manufacturer goes and produces it. The most common products in our drain application, and really if you look at the masters across all the different firms that are on the phone today, I'm sure for the most part you have some version of these called out in your general office application, commercial application master. The round type is the most common. Typically specified, as part of a master with the membrane clamp as a just-in-case type aspect. Obviously, you could remove, depending on the type of drain application, you might not have a membrane, might not need a membrane. in which case you'd go with this RD200 body here. And that's really the only difference, is that membrane clamp. The other option that's very regularly specified is the square type. So square types are designed to match the tile. More and more often, we're seeing notes from engineers get passed along to us at ATS and at Watts. All right, my architect wants something like this, or my architect wants a little bit higher end finish. What do you have available? So when those come up, quite often it is trying to match the tile or come up with a different finish. So all these are available with the stainless steel finish as well. And then, as we mentioned, different applications come up for surface membranes. So surface membrane, like a shower floor area that, like we talked about in those examples. You might have an elastomeric, almost like paint that's laid down, or a actual sheet of a membrane material, maybe just below your tile. And this is run into that little clamping device there, and seals it away. What's happening with that application is, for the most part, the water is being directed right down the strainer, which is what you want in that type of application. We have two different versions of a surface membrane clamp shown here. One with additional secondary clamp as well. So there's different applications, different products are best suited. I think, Carol, you were talking about a kitchen application that you see regularly, where there's both surface membrane and a secondary membrane.
Yeah. Safety flooring.
The safety flooring application, gotcha.
Yeah.
And then into our mechanical rooms, we had that discussion last week on A.O. Smith, and one of the new pieces that they talked about was that condensate filter that they had, like a neutralizer that goes on the outlet of that condensate. Whether you're using that or not, you still want to direct it towards the mechanical room drain. And quite often you see funnel floor drains or hub drains put into the mechanical room, as there's a number of different components in there that have a need for indirect drainage. So having that funnel, these are available, obviously, circular, oval, different material types, whether you're looking for a more heavy duty, ductile iron, or this kind of standard duty nickel bronze strainer. Extended rim floor drains that they're showing down there. This is one of those unique products designed specifically for refrigeration applications. And then some of these wider flange options. This wide structural flange, which we'll talk about a little bit later on when we get to the parking area. These are used generally for precast slab for above ground parking garages. So it's nice wide flange, creates a better structural connection, and ensures that you have more load bearing capability within that precast slab. And then a product that you don't need it until you really need it. If you guys are working on products or projects downtown Toronto, or I'm sure Ottawa's heritage buildings as well, these old wood buildings present some design challenges to us. It's a great look when you can have that, reuse the existing wood floors and the really nice, beams overhead that they use. Makes for a really nice and interesting design, but it does require some differences when it comes to your drainage. There's definitely some challenges that we've seen where you need different types of extensions to try to get through this wooden slab. And then to secure it, you need a wider flange. So having the supporting flange available matches that application. Carol, could you touch on the extended rim a little bit more? There was a question about the refrigeration and how it ties to that extended rim.
Good question, really. I don't sell too many of them, to be honest with you, but from what I understand, it just allows, that much water or whatever to, accumulate before it overflows. But again, not commonly used.
So almost like a standpipe type feature.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah.
We'll, Natalie, we'll try to get some maybe installation drawings and send that over to you after.
Yeah, it's probably one of those things that, it might have been, designed for one specific application once upon a time, but it's not generally commonly used these days.
And then lastly, on the drainage side, just going over some of the key options. Sediment buckets, very versatile, used in a variety of applications. Really, it's about wherever you think you have a lot of debris that could build up and clog your trap. And I just see another question coming on. Vandal-proof screws fit in a variety of applications. Your police stations, your correctional facilities, even certain, long-term care type features where you might be concerned about, just damaging the lines in general. It's an easy option to make sure that no one's having access. High schools, student residences, applications like that where there's concern that, the students might, get up to some rabble rousing and cause some problems for the maintenance staff. Come with either a Phillips head or a Torx pin. And then, that would be given to the maintenance staff so that they have access to it. Funnels, we mentioned before, wide variety of them available. They fit on just about any of the drains that are standard in the existing lineup. And then some of the more unique products, unique options, your side outlets where you have limited vertical accessibility and you need that quick 90, comes with that side outlet option. And then we'll touch on some of these applications a little bit later. But when you're doing, projects where corrosion might be an issue for standard cast iron, ductile iron floor drains where they might rust, the body might rust to the corrosion, stainless steel is a great option. Your light industrial applications where both cost and corrosion need to be concerned, a PVC option is available. And then, of course, highlighted there on the bottom right, the trap primer connection, standard option available on all the Watts floor drain product offering. We could do a whole other session just on trap seal priming if you want. But in general, the premise is just that, from the cold water line, a little bit of water is diverted to the nearby fixture or from a nearby fixture to the drain. Just enough to keep that pre-trap flush, make sure it has a good seal. The seal is required by code to make sure that gas and odors and vermin are not coming back into the building from the sewage system. Watts has the pressure base shown here, but of course, our ATS relationship with SMS does give us the electronic trap seal primers or flow rate trap seal primers if you want. And finally, something that, maybe should be thought of a little bit more regularly when we're thinking about drainage is considering, again, our application, understanding the load rating that's required and understanding the flow that we need through it. So the regular FD100 with that circular grate does come in as your medium duty with a live load between 2,000 and 5,000 pounds. But when you start, that fits a wide variety of applications. But if you're doing, like a grocery store where you've got in the back warehouse pneumatic trucks going up and down over the drains and cleanouts every day, airport terminals, things like that, those get into your extra heavy duty and your special duty applications. So for that grocery store, when that was noted to be an issue, Watts was able to step up to the plate and get a full 1/2-inch thick strainer built that meets that extra heavy duty live load, but fits nicely on the standard floor drain body. So just changing the strainer can really change your application. Now, the next thing to consider is, does that strainer fit the pipe? And that's what we're looking at when we do our free area calculations. So the free area is really just, the open area of all the grates. So they add up all the open space in the grates, and that becomes your free area. You want to make sure that there's enough flow through that strainer to meet the needs of the pipe. So for indoor applications, the general rule of thumb is 1.5 times your transverse area of the connecting pipe. And for outdoor applications, your area drains outdoors, because there could be extra debris, sticks clogging some of those strainer openings. It is recommended to be 2 times the transverse. So we'll run a quick free area calculation. This is probably the easiest math. You guys doing your pumping equations and calculations. This is very basic in comparison, but just something to keep in mind. For a 3-inch pipe, the transverse is 7.06. And if you are doing an outdoor area drain there, then you need 2 times your 706, so 14 inches of free space. So you want to make sure that you're taking a look at that live load and the free area calculation, and making sure that the strainer matches the pipe. So when we go through, we'd see the FD320 is the right drain for this application. Down on the bottom on both the ATS sheet as well as the Watts submittal spec sheet, calls it out clearly right there, so you can feel comfortable you're specifying the right product. Next, on to cleanouts. Pretty basic concept. The general premise is to make sure that you have the availability to clean and maintain your lines, and that the plumbing code calls it out so that you can properly maintain your drainage piping system. Not just maintain, but also inspect. These are becoming more critical as we have shifted towards our low flow world. There's been a number of applications where people maybe pushed closets a little bit too low. Some of the first ultra low flow toilets that you see from other manufacturers have definitely caused some issues on site. And we've been happy to help arrange site inspections and visits to make sure that we address the actual cause of the issue there. It's not always the piping. Sometimes it's fixture. Sometimes it's not the fixture and it's the piping. But either way, make sure you have your clean out. They're required every 100 feet and every major change of direction, exceeding 135 degrees there. Wide variety of these that generally match the floor drain options. One of the keys that you see here is that it's not just a threaded strainer into the body of a floor drain. We do recommend installing this ABS neoprene gasket. It's available as an option from Watts and provides a more heavy-duty seal. We'll go over some of the different options available. Floor cleanouts, definitely the most common. They're located inside and around the immediate exterior of a building, and just simply provide access to the drainage piping below the floor. The wall cleanouts create an access point for any concealed drainage, and for your exposed applications, you do not require the access cover, and they could use just a simple plug. These stack cleanouts are generally installed at the bottom of the vertical waste stacks, and typically located in the basement of the mechanical room. So it's not just in your public space. You can see the countersunk plug there. These work well for stack cleanouts. It's our standard operating practice to make sure that's what's on specified, but you can also get it more as a raised head plug. What's nice about the countersunk is that it doesn't necessarily require the removal tool. It could just be used with bar stock if the removal tool's unavailable. But the raised heads can also just be operated with a pipe wrench. One thing to note on the floor drains for the cleanouts for the for the unfinished areas, they're more often ductile iron versus the true cast that has a little bit more malleability, a little bit of bending without fracturing. So the true cast iron top would be expected to show a lot of rust if it cracks, or won't have as much life expectancy really. Specialty cleanouts, we get back to that kind of one-to-one application. If this, then this. They're available for tiled and carpeted areas. First and foremost, these recessed tops for your terrazzo, your tile. It's just a simple recess that they could, pour their terrazzo concrete in, let it set, or chip the tile to suit the floor, to suit the clean out. This way you have a nice, clean, finished look. However, these are becoming less and less popular. They're falling out of favor a little bit in many specs because traffic walking over and over consistently can really loosen the tile over time, cracks, and reverses the cosmetic benefits. You might want to present that to your architect and at least let them make the decision. That way it's off you and they can make the appropriate call. When it comes to carpet, there's really two main approaches. You've got a carpet marker, this little top piece here, as well as just a flanged carpet. So similar to that surface membrane clamp, really. It runs the carpet in, closes it in, a nice clean installation. For the carpet marker, it would run over top, and then you could pinch it down. So it notifies you where that clean out is. When we get to access housings, these are really just to kind of create almost an extension and a little bit of space so that you have room for the clean out. The housing might not be physically attached to the clean out. You could have a simple, plug underneath here that is then removed. This access housing would also be very familiar if you're familiar with the Watts backwater valves. You can get options like that that include that extension up to grade. Any questions on these specialty cleanouts? I know that they probably get brushed over a lot in the master specs, but we don't often take time to talk about it. So if there is a question, now's a good time. So on to sanitary floor sinks. Why do we use floor sinks instead of floor drains? The general answer is they're used in commercial construction to transition wastewater from floors to the equipment. Really, they are used in places where you cannot afford to have buildup, places where you can't afford unsanitary conditions, places where you want to minimize the potential for any bacteria growing. Your kitchen applications, grocery stores, especially behind the deli or the meat prep area, any food processing area. They're using these applications both to take a large volume as well as to more effectively move out all debris, bacteria, and water. The two primary features that create a floor sink, really is the sanitary design, is making sure that's smooth. The two primary materials are porcelain enamel or stainless steel. These both have a lower coefficient of friction and prevent any sort of buildup. You have a smooth interior with this that creates effective flushing and cleaning. Most importantly is that cleaning comment. These are all provided with a cove corner for the same reason that the sinks that we recommend for these applications, your scullery sink is going to have a bit of a radius on that corner. The reason is you don't want any food buildup, any debris building up in that corner that's then difficult to clean. So this curved orifice, this curved corner makes for a nice, easy clean. These are generally used with indirect drainage. Indirect drainage is just as it sounds, creating an air gap to prevent cross-contamination. One thing to know, especially when it comes to your retrofits, is for above-grade installations. You might have to use the flange here to, as you expect water to kind of seep through your finished floor area or insulation. Similar concept to that, the membrane clamp that we talked about before. There's weep holes in there to drain in, but it's flanged designed to block seepage and direct the water back in. These are good if you have the above grade application where you need to kind of cast it in after the fact, and it would protrude from the ground a little bit. So it's important to consider where you put these. Traffic, foot traffic could be an issue, and we'll go over that shortly. Dome strainers are pretty much required. We do recommend that you put the dome strainer in. It reduces splashing when you have that indirect line, especially with the volume that's coming out, or pots that are dumped directly in the sink. These are heat-resistant plastic dome strainers that are preferable to metal. Metal could scratch the interior of the porcelain surface. And these floor sinks are available with full, half, and 3/4 grates, as well as some of the additional options that you see here. Additional sediment buckets, a top assembly with a circle in between so you could run your pipe directly in, or the additional membrane clamps. Some of the places that these should be used, well, I guess really not the porcelain. When we're talking about different material options, porcelain enamel is great for a number of applications, but they should be noted when there's traffic. Porcelain is slick, the same thing that gives it the great design for these sanitary sink applications also means that the grate can shift if there's foot traffic over it. Grate shifting around or pots being dumped on it means that this porcelain could easily be chipped. It's the same reason you no longer see those porcelain enamel mop sinks. Those are a thing of the past. So when you do have foot traffic and some of this debris, there's a couple different material options. Stainless steel is great in that sense because it really doesn't interact with some of the aggressive cleaners. In your industrial facilities, if there's waste byproducts that are being sent down, it won't interact. Commercial kitchens, it won't be broken and dented by the large pot washes. And then for some of the light commercial applications, the plastic can withstand the temperatures and be easy to clean as well. Really, the stainless steel is the option to consider when you get into these heavy duty applications. And for your pharma, for your food processing plant, you're going to be looking for the most part at stainless steel drainage pipe anyways. So again, this is one of those products where you could really have an entire session just on the Blücher line, but Blücher specializes in stainless steel. They have everything from your cleanouts to your floor and area drains, surface membrane clamps, below grade clamps, different grading options, even high-end aesthetic grates that could go on like a linear trench for your shower areas. When we get into certain medical applications where it might be pressurized facility, they have a vacuum handle for an airtight, gas-tight, watertight clean out / drain. So in this application, you'd have it closed for the most part, and then when they need to do a clean down of the room, they could use the vacuum handle to remove that top. Like I said, we could spend a lot of time just on this, so if there is requests for any of that information, let us know and we'll get that over to you. The kitchen applications, those large commercial kitchens, they have the channel and trench drain type product, both in 304 and 316. These are pre-sloped, so you get longitudinal crossfall that directs all water and debris into the center drain or wherever your drain outlet's located. 6, 12, and 24 inches wide, and really any load ratings and applications. You can see some of the different applications that it shows here from your shower rooms where it is matching that high-end aesthetic that the architects are asking for these days, but your larger pot wash installation photos. And then I love this, they actually really did well when they launched the new HygieniPro trench channel, trench drain into the brewery and microbrewery applications. I was actually down in California with my rep there. They were given a similar type presentation a couple of years ago. And I guess one of the engineers had worked on the design for this microbrewery, so it hosted it there. We got to do a full tour of the facility, and when they dump those large vats full of beer or the byproducts, any of their mixing agents, they've got to evacuate that. Any time delays can really affect both your turnaround time, the amount that you can produce. So having something that drains quickly and effectively is really important. With that, just a little bit more detail on this before I pass it over. And I'll be honest, I find that my internet's a little laggy, so I'll try to explain the talking over. There's a lot of focus, obviously, on different bacteria and improved hygiene these days. This is even before the current issues. Salmonella and Listeria were a big concern in food production facilities. So obviously full stainless steel is ideal for those applications because it doesn't interact with any of the cleaners that they use in the abrasive material. One of the key features of this design was that little channel. You know, this product existed before. This is just an improvement on the existing. That little channel prevents any buildup of debris, and even with low flows allows it to drain significantly faster. Sediment buckets and traps and all sorts of other accessories are available that can help customize it to your job. But really the uniform key between all these products is that little bevel that just makes sure everything, even in low flow conditions, drains significantly faster than the rest. And I'll send over a link to another video that really shows the cross comparison between the two. So if you are working on pharma, food processing plants, anything like that, where drain down time is important, this is definitely by far your best option. And with that, I'll pass it over to Carol to go over the Hero products.
Okay, in respect for time, we'll be going through this. If there's any questions, don't hesitate to ask. But we'll be touching on the Drainage Hero products. And these are products that Watts feels that, you know, we have something a little different than the competition. It just, you know, stands out. Smaller features that help with installation to go a little smoother than normal and eliminate hopefully some of the common issues that may happen. So next slide. Okay, so this is the industry standard closet carrier. Carriers, as you know, are designed to support the fixture independent of the wall structure. So these are generally behind the wall supports that, you know, that'll support various different water closets. So this, the nipple design on the industry standard is a compression seal. So it is, you know, adjustable in field. You can move it with just loosening those 4 little bolts there. The traditional style carriers are generally a threaded type nipple that once you break the seal to try to adjust that, then it's a potential leak hazard. And we don't want water leaking behind the wall because usually it starts off slow and it's there for who knows how long and then causes more and more damage. So that's, you know, they're available in horizontal, vertical, anywhere from standard 500-pound support right up to 1,000-pound bariatric load ratings. These are our track lab carriers. So at the bottom right-hand side is the traditional, you know, lab carrier that's probably used, you know, 90% of the time. You know, arm adjustability depending on the fixture that it's fitting, but once it's basically anchored into the floor, you don't have that horizontal adjustability. Whereas the track carrier, which was designed basically for block wall construction, you can see you've got that, once it is anchored in place, you've got that adjustability for, you know, the arm length plus the horizontal adjustability. So if you're banking these things like on a, you know, in a prefab shop and you know, you think you've got them where you need them, you get them on site, things happen, you have to adjust, very easy to do here. These are some of our standard roof drain configurations. Again, not much of a hero product, but the beauty about Watts products is, you know, you can have a standard roof drain, which would consist of a body, a flange, and a dome, and then you add in all different types of options as needed. So if you had these installed, let's say, and realize that it needs to go to a flow control type situation, it's not a problem. Take the dome off in a flow control weir, easy to do. You know, everything's kind of above that, above the deck installation at that point. So a lot easier to, to add in kind of after the fact. So the beauty about Watts products is that, you can have a roof drain, uses the same body as a parking area, uses the same clamp, so they're interchangeable. Next slide just shows similar roof, but for an inverted roof. So basically you've still got your same basic components, the B2 body, the B2 LG flange, the type of, dome, and add in with a flange, similar flange and clamp, and the ballast guard, which are available in, whatever size is required, easily adaptable.
And I think just to highlight, the difference, really, it's where that membrane's located. We get asked this all the time, and we can, ATS can certainly help you get the right drain. Just looking at where your membrane's located in regard to the insulation.
These are the metal deck roof drains and the new F flange. So the typical extension, let's say on a typical drain, would be a threaded extension or a fixed extension that'll raise up depending on the thickness of your installation. But again, that is potential leak point. So on the Watts F flange, you're basically eliminating the issue of having any leak points by this, and the next slide will actually show the better installation of it. But it's basically taking your sump receiver and turning it into a double duty. So this deck plate now is made of the same type of gauge steel, let's say, that the roof deck itself. And now you're raising the body up as opposed to putting in another component that's going to, give you a potential spot for things to leak. So the next slide is actually going to show the different types of installation. So, the combined, you can use it as a deck clamp sitting on top of the deck where your insulation tapers into the drain, or it'll adjust depending on the insulation thickness. So dual outlet roof drains. These are more common, picking up a little bit more interest with overflow opposed to flow control. So generally in the past, you would have two drains. You'd have a primary drain and an overflow drain. So, two deck penetrations, more potential to leak. This is now kind of taken away that, that labor, and now it has reduced the footprint by less than half. So, your one side would, lost my train of thought there.
Yeah, no worries. I think the key here is, like you were talking about, the difference in the size. This is much more common in the US, we found. I think because we do more flow control here, we were talking about that before, doesn't necessarily come in as often, correct?
True.
Yeah.
And our dead level trench, which is really truly what we would consider our hero product. This was designed by our in-house engineer, Bush Regali, and it came from a point of, let's try to take away the guesswork and the labor intensive, the design of, how do we get this thing straight? Because most trench drain installations, very, very difficult to get things in a straight line, and takes a lot of people to, install, let's say, a 100-foot run. So basically what he's done is he's put the actual load design in the frame. So you can see those little frame ears, those extend out from the channel. That's where the structural support is. Basically, the channel is just a conduit, carries the water out. There's no, the load happens in the frame as well as the actual slope. So if you notice, and you can probably see there a little bit, but the actual frames are designed to slope the further you go. So you're starting off, point A, and the slope actually happens in that frame. So when you assemble this and have it, installed in your trench, you're going to see just basically, you're going to put the level on top and you'll level it off there, and it's dead level straight. So the channels, the channels themselves are flanged together in like a tongue and groove type flange, and that keeps everything solid. So there's, less chance for anything to move during pour, and it comes, everything that is needed to install plus those construction covers. So there's no longer any issue of, having to rip a piece of plywood or tape or whatever. That's how it comes. There are many different types of grading options depending on the aesthetic that you're looking for, the load ratings, decorative, standard would be ductile iron, which you would use, anywhere that aesthetics aren't very important, but structurally you need that, for load ratings depending on that application. So these come in 6 wide, 12-inch wide basins for both.
And I think the key, like you mentioned there, is the load ratings, right? These even get up to like Class F rating for airport applications. So, these reinforced grates are very, very heavy duty and can withstand, really there's a product that suits just about every load rated application that they might have. So similar to that conversation we had earlier on floor drains, consider the load in the application and let us know, and our team will be able to get that for you.
Yeah, and available in runs up to 500 feet. It's infinite, really. So parking deck drains. So traditionally, parking deck areas pose, some specific drainage challenges. So above ground parking structures, for instance, are susceptible to, heat, cold, wind, vibration. So there's a lot of things to consider in specifying the proper drain for the application. So in a lot of these parking decks, you want to keep the penetration as minimal as possible because, that the structural integrity you want to keep intact. So we have different drains for parking decks depending if they're cast in place or if they're in precast. As you can see in the first picture there, that is basically a wide flange parking area drain. You see that the wider the flange, the more structural integrity of the deck will be maintained. You can see that in the third picture as well. We've got, that would be an FD490 with the ductile two-piece body, top assembly, wider deck flange underneath. So it, it's supported very well. The middle picture showing a prefab trench drain application. So because, again, you don't want to go too deep, or you can't go too deep because the penetration is, minimal. This is a 2-inch overall trench drain. So it can still move in a lot of water, but it's minimal depth.
And that fits a lot of different applications, really, right? Like the 2-inch depth is really great anywhere that you need a shallow body trench drain.
So these are just some of the other, green roof drains and interceptors. Grease interceptors, oil interceptors, sediment interceptors. They're all, grease and oil basically separate lighter than water substances, and sediment and lint separate, heavier than water. These are made in many different sizes. We go from, 4 gallons up to 500, 600 gallons. So depending on the application, we make them in basically 2 types of materials, so steel and stainless steel, custom dimensions, custom heights, various, depending on the load rating, if these are being buried or on the floor application, standard covers or traffic rated covers. These can be installed inside and outside, many different applications for sure. And we can do custom sizing. So a lot of times we have to do retrofit, for interceptors that have been installed in applications, might have been in there for 20, 30 years. So we can accommodate custom as well. So these are just some of the typical oil interceptors. So the picture to the left is the standard WO series, and that's basically just a separate oil interceptor. As mentioned before, I think this one's 10 gallons up to 600 gallons. You can get the marrying storage tank if needed. Not necessarily does it have to be a watt storage tank, but we offer that. The OI 700 series is an oil interceptor with an integral storage tank. And again, these can be made from, 10 gallons up to size of small cars, depending on the application. So green roof drains. These are being specified more and more due to LEED and trying to get more green space in, heavily populated city centers and such, top of condos, office buildings. So there's a wide variety of different products, just depending on the application. If it's an extensive or an intensive green roof, intensive would be just maybe simple grasses that, maybe replace a typical roof surface, to more intensive. So anything that might include landscaping, trees, parks, crops, you name it. So due to that, obviously there's increased structural loads on roofs. So that needs to be taken into consideration when designing the type of roof drain to, either retain water for irrigation purposes or to get rid of water fairly quickly. But we can design, not just what we offer or what we show, but we can custom design any drain depending on the needs.
Perfect, Carol. So Orkan, I saw your question. We'll get to your question on heated or non-heated room enclosure applications for grease interceptors. We'll ask Carol to get to that shortly. I just want to quickly wrap up here. for anyone that needs to drop off right at 1 o'clock. Thanks for joining us. We covered a lot of products here. Again, from floor drains, cleanouts, sanitary floor sinks, interceptors. We tried to cover as much as we could. If anyone has additional questions on these, whether it's the closet carrier, the trench drain, or parking drains, some really unique products there that we can bring up for you. As a reminder, Watts is one of the main sponsors on ATS, and really most of our email spec service does revolve around a lot of kind of project takeoffs for drains. Our team will happily do it for you. Simply send in your spec request. We are going to be looking to add additional ways to handle this customer service in the future, but for now, just send an email to ats@atsspec.com or to Mo or to myself. Right now, even though we have put additional resources onto our spec team to try to handle all the demand right now, there's a lot of requests for project turnaround. Please let us know your date and time, the time that you need it back. If it's quick and you need it this afternoon, that's fine. Just let us know so that we make sure we hit it. If you need it on Thursday, then let us know what time you need it on Thursday. Include as much of the project details and application as you can. A drawing or fixture list is ideal, especially if we're doing drainage stuff. We need a cross section. We can properly recommend the appropriate roof or floor drain. Quick example here, 5 o'clock back in December, engineer over at Heedy needed a quick turnaround. They had already been discussing the job. They send over the drawings to us so we can give a second opinion on the appropriate roof drain. We're already looking at the RD200-B-D-K, which is your sump receiver and under deck clamp with a metal dome, cast iron dome. So, they get the cut sheet, but not, if you tell us you also need a written spec, we can give you, the CSI format. We do still have our, the Michael Jordan of formats, the Lou special is what I like to call it. Lou's way of writing the spec is still one of our outputs. So if you're familiar with the history of ATS and you know who Lou is, in honor of the Michael Jordan documentary on the weekend, let's say he's the GOAT of plumbing. Then of course your fixture schedule. So we are looking at updating our fixture schedules when we launch the new website in May, June area. We have open beta or closed beta testing coming up in May with new formats to be tested. And then of course, training is critical. So if you want more information on any of the subjects we went over today, Watts actually is really invested in their online training program. And not only do they have great information, but you can get some pretty cool swag. I got my eye on the beer flight tasting. Perfect for work from home environment. You can have that 5 o'clock flight ready for you whenever you're done and train all day. So lots of good info there. But really it is a great training program with lots of good information. I've done countless hours on it so far myself. So thank you very much for joining us. I appreciate you spending your lunch hour with us. Again, I know everyone's pretty swamped right now. So taking the time out to learn about the product with us is very appreciated. I hope that these are helping you out in your day-to-day. Our plan is to do pump sizing next week, and we'll go over basin, pits, controls, and things like that for your submersible pumps. But for any of the products we talked about today, if you want to have a second set of eyes on your current master, if you have a current project that you need help reviewing your roof drain selection or making sure that you have the appropriate floor drain, we can do that for you. If you want to lunch and learn on the Blucher product for your particular firm and team, we could definitely set that up or just have a project-specific discussion with you. So thanks everyone for joining us. I appreciate you all spending the time with us again. Hope everyone enjoys the rest of the week. And Carol, just a quick question before we go about installation of grease interceptors in a non-heated room and enclosure. I believe there is heat tracing available, correct?
Not that Watts does, no, that would be by others. Generally, we say inside, or if you're gonna all outside, then it needs to be below the frost line. And then an extension can be ordered to bring it up to, ground level.
Perfect. Does that help answer your question, Orkan? I hope
Yes,
so.
it does.
Perfect. Thank you very much for the question. Any other questions as we wrap up here? Perfect. Well, have a look at your firm's master. Make sure you got everything up to date. If you're not calling out specific models for your different applications, let us know. We can get you the appropriate model numbers. So at least there's a good basis of design. And then you just want to make sure that any other manufacturer matches that basis of design. So hopefully that's helpful. And we'll have a copy of the slide deck as well as the links to those videos sent out either later today or tomorrow morning. So appreciate you spending the time with us once again. And yes,
Thanks, everyone.
have a good rest of the day, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.